Okay, we've been exposing stretch Christianity for a while here, and so I'm just going to get right into the scriptures and want to give a shout out to the Akim out there that's pushing this truth, and give all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahshai, and to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who are teaching this truth in sincerity. And as said before, stretch Christianity, they really have done a number on we Hebrew Israelites because, first of all, we're going to get into the history of how we got here to Babylon the Great, America, but, we have to go into the vision of the 70 weeks, that's spoken of in Daniel as to what would be taking place, because Esau wants us to believe that a future Antichrist is going to come and that, this is all about a peace agreement with between Israel and Palestine, that the Antichrist is going to broker a deal between Palestine and Israel, and that these Israelis are going to have peace for 7 years, and the Antichrist is going to come in the middle. Well, what they don't want you to know about is that, of course, we know that they're not the real Jews of the Bible, that the real Jews of the Bible, the tribe of Judah in particular, which includes Benjamin and Levi, the kingdom of Judah, these are in fact the what you would refer to as black people today, aka, Negroes in America, which, how did they get here to begin with? Because the white man wants you to believe that they were just African slaves. Well, how did they get into slavery to begin with? Does the Bible not talk about how the Israelites would go into slavery, that eventually the northern and southern kingdom would be oppressed together, which leads us to where we are now, Babylon the Great, America. But, these scholars and all them, they don't want you to know that it's America, that America is Babylon the Great. Some Edomites have put it out there, but for the most part, they don't want you to believe that we're at that time now. So I'm just going to read out of Daniel chapter 9, verse 23. At the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth, and I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. Again, this is also talking about the time period of 70 AD, because this is going to talk about the 70 weeks, which are really years. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the coming forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem, which we know that when this happens, this is when Yahushua has returned, and the people rebuild Jerusalem, which the kingdom is being set up now, as we're coming back as to who we are as a people, and we're realizing that, blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans make up the entire kingdom of Israel. Unto the Messiah the prince shall be 70 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. So you can see how Esau, wants to make this all about him, which is why they call it the Israeli state, which is in the Levant area there in the Middle East, because Esau wants to try to fool you into making them believe that they're the Jews and that the Messiah is a white man, a.k.a. Cesare Borgia. So Esau really is trying to make you believe in the Borgia image. But we're going to get into this because, I'm going to finish this passage here in Daniel, because this is where Esau really does a number here, and twisted these scriptures, but we're going to read it for what it is. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. And again, We know that this is when Jerusalem was conquered in 70 A.D., but they don't want you to think that that's Daniel's 70 weeks. They do all kinds of other charts and try to say that the 70 weeks is really 490, and just they try to do all kinds of shit. The fucking what the fuck are they? The Seven-Day Adventists tried to, they tried to bring you the timeline like in the 1800s, try to give you a specific date, and Esau's just been creating all kinds of cults, to support their doctrine, which is a doctrine of devils. So Daniel 9:27, this is the big one. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. For the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate unto the consumption, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. What Esau doesn't want you to know is that this is actually history, that this has already taken place, and in fact this is why one of the books was taken out. As many books were taken out of the Bible, they call it the Apocrypha, so we're going to read right out of the Apocrypha in 1 Maccabees. And we're just going to start in 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 41. This is what Esau doesn't want you to know about, that this little passage there in Daniel had already happened. Then the king wrote to his whole kingdom, and that all should be one people. You hear about this all the time, the New World Order, and this New World Order thing is an old concept, but really, truly, this is when the so-called Christian church had started, and that all should give up their particular customs. All the Gentiles, which in this form means the other nations, accepted the command of the king. Many, even from Israel, gladly adopted his religion. They sacrificed to idols and profaned the Sabbath. Again, this is when stretched Christianity really began. They just kept in a little bit of here, a little bit of there. Basically Christianity, Catholicism, really seriously what was going on here is that they just wanted to mold all the religions into one thing, and this is how it started. So it's right there in 1 Maccabees, starting with chapter 1, especially from 41 and up. So back to verse 44. And the king sent letters by messengers to Jerusalem and the towns of Judah. He directed them to follow custom strange to the land, to forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices and drink offerings in the sanctuary, to profane Sabbaths and festivals. Again, now you see in the word profane. So profane doesn't mean letting out a shit or a fuck, because shit or fuck is really slang. Like another brother just recently did that. But to profane something means to pretty much come against it. So Esau, because that's who the Romans were, profaned the sanctuary, Sabbaths, and festivals, to defile the sanctuary and the priests, to build altars and sacred precincts and shrines for idols, to sacrifice swine and other unclean animals. So now you can see where this pork eating began, and pretty much that the law's been done away with and everything. Well, that's what Esau was telling these people, to defile the sanctuary and priests, to build altars and sacred precincts and shrines for idols, to sacrifice swine and other unclean animals, and to leave their sons uncircumcised. They were to make themselves abominable by everything unclean and profane. Thus, the abomination of desolation that took place in the temple, when he shall go into the temple and cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. This is what this is talking about. So that they would forget the law and change all the ordinances. So again, this is where the concept of stretched Christianity came in and told everyone that the law's been done away with, that, pretty much he came for the Gentiles, which means all nations, and that the law has been done away with. This is Esau. This is what he does not want you to know about. That he's the one that caused the sacrifice and oblation to cease. He's the one that polluted the sanctuary. He is the one. He added, and whosoever does not obey the command of the king shall die. In such words he wrote to his whole kingdom. He appointed inspectors over all the people and commanded the towns of Judah to offer sacrifice town by town. Many of the people, everyone who forsook the law, joined them, and they did evil in the land. They drove Israel into hiding in every place of refuge they had. So again, this is when we pretty much, we're no longer a kingdom, and we went into the four quarters of the earth. This is when the scattering had begun. I mean, the northern kingdom had already been over here in North and South America, but this is when the kingdom of Judah was conquered in 70 A.D., And, of course, we know about Deuteronomy chapter 28, that we would be brought on slave ships over here to Babylon the Great, America. So we're going to now read into Revelation, and, we'll start with 13 and just kind of get all the way down to 18, where eventually Babylon the Great, America, is destroyed. It shall be consumed with fire in the presence of the holy angels, because, Yashala, Israel. Now they've heard the word of the prophets, and that's what we're doing out on the streets now, prophesying, the downfall of America, which is Babylon the Great, and yet they still want to be defiled with women, which means, simply put, keeping stretched Christianity, even though they know it's been a lie. But they want to keep the lie because it's comfortable for them, a.k.a. Stockholm Syndrome. So we'll just get into Revelation chapter 13 in particularly, because here's, what's going to happen to those who take this mark, the RFID implant, which is the big one that's being pushed now by Esau, the so-called white man. And you got many of these Israelite groups out there, teaching that the mark of the beast is not the chip, that it's a.k.a. Christianity. That's what one group says. And then the other one says that it's an embargo. And another one says that, you could go ahead and take it. But you take this mark, this RFID, you shall be burned with fire in the presence of the holy angels. That's talking about that thermonuclear war that's about to happen. So let's go ahead and read in chapter 13. Okay, well, now looking into this, the first beast is the Roman Empire, which that eventually dissolved a little bit after 70 A.D. So this second beast really started to take form by about 1300, when the 1,000 years, they were put into slavery. We put them into slavery. Thus we Hebrew Israelites, especially the southern kingdom, Judah, who ruled pretty much Europe, a.k.a. The bottomless pit, meaning that we put Esau in there, and Esau couldn't take power till about, he really started to take power by about 1492. So this is where the second beast began. So starting in Revelation chapter 13, verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, thus the Roman Empire before him. He pretty much has the same power, Esau, the so-called white man, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Thus, meaning that, inquisitions, all that. This is when it really started to take place, especially when Babylon the Great, America, was built. He pretty much, was deceiving the world with stretched Christianity. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. This is basically meaning that he can cause war, and pretty much anybody that disagreed with him, he'd be able to do all these things, and we can see that now that, with these drones and everything else, that pretty much anybody that disagrees with him, he's going to destroy them. and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, Thou shalt make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. Thus, make an image of Esau, and a big part of that image, of course, is Cesare and the worship of Cesare Borgia, but you also, pretty much the image, be all you could be, America's great, freedom, let freedom and reign, and all this shit, is making an image unto the beast, which pretty much is the destroyer. Esau is the destroyer. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, and the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Thus, if you ain't part of the New World Order, you're going to be exterminated, And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their foreheads, that no man may buy, sell, or trade, save he that had the mark, or of the beast, or the number of his name. So that means that you can't do all trades. And what's this global currency? It's all digital. Digital currency, that's coming. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So we know 666, and of course this is talking about the fact that pretty much you can't do anything unless you have that embargo. It kind of started with the UPC codes, which is 666, and would eventually become the microchip once they had developed it. But they showed you this stuff in $6 Million Man and all that they were creating a microchip. We could rebuild him. We have the technology, to where they mix man with machine, and you see all kinds of movies like that, And so this is those that want to live forever, because Esau thinks he's going to live forever with this technology, and that's why they're trying to push this RFID mark. So I'm going to jump down to Revelation chapter 14, verse 3, because we're singing that new song now. So, and this is, the elect of Yasharahla, 144,000 in particularly, they're out on the streets teaching. So we're singing that song. We're singing different choruses of the song, but it's the same song. You could click on many of these camps, but we're all singing that same song. Just maybe at other parts of the song, but pretty much it's the same song. All around the world, same song. Verse 3, and they sung as it were a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts and the elders, that no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. And thus, this is talking about those that came back to their heritage, to the realization of who they were. Just needed the right person to say the right words, that they would come back to their heritage. And this has nothing to do with virginity or anything, even though it does have that word in there, doesn't mean without sex, that's just ridiculous. But to be defiled with women means that you've adapted all these other policies, that you've adapted Christianity, and you're trying to stretch Christianity into this truth. These are people that will not do it, thus the elect. These are which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins, meaning that, pretty much they are newborns. They are born into this truth. They are they which follow the Lamb, wheresoever he goeth. They were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto Yahweh and to the Lamb, which is Yahweh Shai. We have both names, Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, And we're very serious about that, that we don't call him by stretch Christianity, a.k.a. Jesus Christ and God. We call him by his true name, because we've come back to our nationality. Because we know about the history that took place, We're coming back to our heritage. And so now we're going to jump down to verse 6. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having that everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. Again, that's what's happening with, starting with Great Millstone and other Akim out there that's pushing this truth all around the world, singing the same song. Sorry, still getting over bronchitis. Saying with a loud voice, "Fear Yahweh and give glory unto him, for the hour of the judgment is come. Worship him that made heaven and the earth and the sea and the fountain of waters." And what are we saying there? Do you not see our signs all the time saying that America will be consumed by nuclear fire and that this kingdom of Esau, America, is going to be destroyed? Are we not saying this? Verse 8. There followed another angel saying, "Babylon is fallen, that great city, which is America, because she had made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication." In other words, they adapted all these policies of America and were ultimately destroyed by America. Pretty much lost their heritage, was conquered by America. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If any man worship the beast," that is American image or EU, UN, NATO, and his image, and receive his mark in the forehead or in his hand, that is the RFID implant, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Yahweh, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Well, how is that going to be in the presence of the holy angels? That is what Esau likes to refer to as UFOs, holy angels, when we come back on them ships, which are known as the chariots, like the song "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." And this is talking about the ultimate day of destruction. "And the smoke of the torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they had no rest, nor day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name." That is Esau, Babylon the Great, America, having these names, being defiled with Esau, That means being in his fucking armies and all that shit, So now we're going to jump into the big one, Revelation chapter 18. "And after all these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory." That is, when these chariots came down, you can see all these lights everywhere. You can even see them now every once in a while destroying these fucking planes with, that spread chemtrails. You can see them out in the skies. This is good news for us, but very bad news for Esau, because they're like going to finally destroy this place, America, "And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils," that is, Edomites, "and hold every foul spirit and a cage of unclean and hateful bird." Again, this is about Edomites and the so-called white man. "For all nations have drunken the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundances of her delicacies." Because how was America conquered? By the slaughter of Gad, in particularly, and of course the slaughter of the Latinos, which are the, tribe of Issachar, Manasseh, Ephraim, all these places that were conquered by Esau, when they fell into dictatorship under Esau, which is pretty much the beast. "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people." And that's what's happening now. We're coming out of it. The elect are coming out of her. "Be not partakers of her sins, that you receive not of her plagues." So, we've gotten away from the idea that America, beautiful land of the free. We know that that's all bullshit. We're getting out of this, We don't salute the flag. We fucking hate everything about this place. We despise this fucking place because we come to the realization of who we are, and that this whole thing, Christianity, stretch Christianity, because they like to stretch all this to make doctrines fit in there, just like what I just read out of First Maccabees chapter 1, up to about 54, it was about how they adapted all these religions and combined them all into one, including the Hebrew, and so that would eventually mold into what we know as stretch Christianity today, which is pretty much all religions mixed into one, especially this hell doctrine, which is really from Greek mythology. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh hath remembered her iniquities. He remembers everything that they had done to the tribe of Gad, the Native Americans, and how so many innocents were slaughtered by this beast, this so-called white man, the Edomites. Reward her as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works, and the cup which she hath filled, to fill her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit as a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. These Edomites don't think that America's ever going to be attacked, Oh, that'll never happen here. But yet these Amalekites, which run Babylon, the handlers, that run Donald Trump or Barack Obama or George Bush or whatever, these handlers, they think that they won't turn on them. But what the fuck do you think 9/11 is? The goddamn handlers did it, but they just decided to blame their enemies, to blame, a.k.a. the Ishmaelites, which, of course, they call them the terrorists. But we know Esau is the terrorist. He's been terrorizing the people in Syria. He's causing Damascus to fall. He's the terror of the world. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord Yahweh who judgeth her. And that is talking about the thermonuclear weapons, as well as the blast from the mothership and all those other ships that they like to call UFOs when they are visited, just like Independence Day. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her, for they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off. So in other words, this is going to be broadcasted all over the satellites. Alas, alas, the great city, Babylon, the mighty city, for 1 hour has thy judgment come, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn after her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. And, you can read the rest of this, but ultimately this place, Babylon the Great, will come to its end, and no one will help Babylon because all these countries are starting to turn against Babylon the Great. They want America out of the Middle East, and these other places, like Saudi Arabia and Turkey, they don't want to deal with America anymore because America sucks. They're fucked up, But of course, America's trying to hold on to those oil fields that are in Syria now, which is why they won't give up this area, and they'll just call it Kurdistan, because they want to have all the riches of Syria and of Iraq, so that way they can still keep their foot in the door, and all these other countries are not going to deal with it. So this war will break out. Of course, they will use the Israeli state to attack Damascus, as they have always. And I believe these Amalekites, these handlers, are going to be the ones that do it, because they really can't do it as America. They could, I suppose, but, this is all going to be, this is pretty much the mother of all battles, as Saddam Hussein once predicted. Saddam Hussein, just like Bashar al-Assad, he was accused of chemical weapons, and they raised a war, caused a civil war in Iraq, and, led a whole bunch of wars against Iraq, and eventually conquered Iraq and took all the riches of Iraq, stripped Iraq, even used nuclear weapons against Fallujah, but they didn't call them nuclear weapons. They called them, a.k.a. bunker busting bombs. Remember, they always said that Saddam Hussein, hiding bunker, we needed bunker busting bombs. Those were small nukes, a.k.a. the neutron bombs that were used to conquer Fallujah, because the people of Iraq did not want America there, and so they were not easy to conquer. So America used nuclear weapons against Iraq. Nuclear weapons have been used for quite some time, the smaller ones, but big enough. You saw it in Ukraine. You saw it over there in Yemen, nuclear weapons being used, supplied by the Israeli state, which are the Amalekites, used them in both Ukraine and in Yemen, and have used them in Iraq. And even, believe it or not, they did use them against Damascus, too. A few years ago, in 2013, there was a nuclear weapon used against Damascus. again, these are the smaller nuclear weapons, but they're still nuclear weapons, neutrons. So eventually they're going to pretty much detonate bigger bombs, and I believe that because history shows us that it's Amalek, the Amalekites, that will do the main one, causing Damascus to cease in that day. And that's what will trigger this whole event, as they are all gathering together in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and that is the areas of the Middle East. I'm probably mispronouncing it, so forgive me, but that's what it is. So I hope that this has been edifying and given you a more clear understanding about how we fail as a people and how we've been brought here to Babylon the Great, and how if we're part of that elect, we're going to be delivered in that day. So, death to America, death to the two-thirds, and but a shout-out to the Akim out there that's pushing this truth, and especially if we're part of that elect, the 144,000.